Welcome to the Madison Miller podcast. Tonight's guest is somebody that's been on several times before. Diehard Pittsburgh Penguins fan and one of my best friends, Stephen Bouhadana. How are you doing on this Tuesday night?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me again, Madison. I want to say this is our third time doing the podcast together.
Yep.
And we're a little late to start on the season, but it's okay because we have a really interesting slate of teams playing tonight. And then we also have a really pretty crazy start to the NHL season for sure on the East and West Coast that we're going to talk about.
Yep, we'll start with the East. Our favorite teams reside in the Eastern Conference. We'll start with your team, the Penguins, who are currently trailing 3-0 to Tampa, but are off to a good start. I believe it's 4-0-2, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Tell me your take on that start, especially without Sidney Crosby. I think that's a pretty big deal.
I think it's a huge deal. I think the Penguins had quite a few signings and trades over the offseason, which have helped them so far. And they've also had some, I don't want to say prospects, but younger guys that have definitely stepped up since playing last season. You look at guys like Drew O'Connor, he's doing extremely well. Kapanen, who was brought in last year, I believe, and he's doing really well right now at the Pens. And, you know, being without Crosby for a little bit longer, it's definitely hurting, but the Penguins seem to find ways to score goals.
Yeah, they've been scoring a lot. Opening night was probably one of the more impressive performances they've had against Tampa. That was, 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, about I think it's around 2.5 weeks ago.
It was a Tuesday night.
It was, so it was probably about 3 weeks ago, and they did well. And so far, I've been really impressed with Jari. I'm really, really liking that Jari stuck around. No one ever really found out what happened, if he was injured in, the postseason last year or what. But right now he's been doing extremely well, and I'm really happy that he stuck around.
Yeah, me too. For your sake. The Rangers are off to a decent start, 4-2-1. That's my favorite team. They had a 4-game winning streak snapped yesterday against Calgary. What are your thoughts on the Rangers so far?
I think the Rangers can do pretty well this season. I definitely think one of the things that sticks to me the most with the Rangers is they just need to get off to a fast start. And somehow the Rangers seem to fall behind, and they can come back and win, but getting off to that quick start is really what will push that team to continue that momentum.
Right.
So I think that this season, where the Rangers will find success is not only in solid goaltending, which is what they need from both goaltenders, but they need to get off to a fast start, especially like you're talking first 5-10 minutes in that whole first period.
Right. Yeah. The Rangers are a team that tends to fall behind, as you saw against Ottawa. They came from behind 2 goals down. They scored 3 in the third period to win that game. I did not think they were winning that game. That was a fun comeback. Let's switch over to the other team you like to follow closely. That's the Washington Capitals. Good start. They've been a little up and down, like goaltending wise. Samsonov was in that last night, right?
Yes. And that's funny. I was just going to say, let's bring up the Capitals. I think the Capitals are a team that came into the season, and a lot of people thought that they have obviously we're only 3 weeks in, but they have a much, there's a big difference. They have a lot of veterans, and then they have a lot of young guys. But I think that close relationship with my favorite, the Hershey Bears in the AHL,
right,
and the Caps, that farm system is just so great because you see guys like now Martin Fervari and Connor McMichael are getting starts with the Capitals. You see both Samsonov and Vanacek playing well, and I think the Capitals are a team that can go far in the postseason. And I'll say it now, I think the Kraken were wrong in letting Vanacek go.
Ooh, I think that's a good call. I like that too. There's another team in the Metro Division I think is going to regret a goalie trade. The Carolina Hurricanes.
Really?
Nedeljkovic. I really think that they could come back to bite them. I mean, Frederick Anderson's flopped in postseasons. Like, he was the goalie of Toronto.
You know what, I agree.
They lost to Montreal in the playoffs last year. I mean, to me, he's a regular season goalie. And Nedeljkovic, I thought, was fabulous last year. I think the Red Wings won that trade. I think that could be the downfall of Carolina, who's off to a good start. What's their record? They are 5-0. They're undefeated, though. The most surprising team in the Metro Division to me is Columbus, though. They are 4-2. Elvis Merzlikins has been good. What are your thoughts on Columbus? Have you watched a little bit of them?
I've watched a very small bit of the Blue Jackets, but I think they're definitely a wild card this season. Like, I just don't know where they go. I mean, shifting a little bit, I would love for them to go further than like a team like the Flyers or the Devils.
Right.
But I definitely think that they're just so unpredictable.
Yeah.
They need like that consistency. But I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see them this season.
Yeah, they're interesting. I'm surprised that they're off to such a good start. That was the team that many people thought finished in last place in the division, myself included. But right now they're not in last place, but we still have a long ways to go. The Flyers are off to a 2-1-1 start. Devils have been surprising 3-1, but they're losing right now to Calgary. That's probably going to drop to 3-2. And I think they were lucky a couple times this year. If between Devils or Blue Jackets, who do you think is more likely to be a surprise player in the Metro Division?
If I'm picking between the two off the performance we've seen since the start of the season, I'm going to say the Devils.
Yeah.
I really do think the Devils can make a push. I think it'll all come down to how they play in the middle of the season and then come, February and March, how those games go. I think that if they play well for the next 2 months, they need to finish strong. But I think they could surprise and make an appearance in the postseason.
Yeah, I've seen some people pick them to go to the playoffs before the year. They got some big free agent signings last couple of years. I think the big disappointment so far in the Metro Division has to be the Islanders. 3-2-1 to start the year. Couple shaky losses. They lost an OT to Columbus. I thought the Islanders were going to get off to a better start than they've gotten off to, despite winning, was that 2 nights ago in Vegas?
Yes, they did win 2 nights ago in Vegas. Vegas and another team being a little bit inconsistent, but we'll talk about them in the Western Conference portion. I think the Islanders can do well. They brought on Chara. I mean, they can definitely, bring in that firepower, but it just doesn't seem like what they're doing right now and who they have are gelling with each other all too well. It just doesn't seem like it's working.
Yeah, that's what I feel about the Islanders too. But I think there's a lot of time. They're usually the team that gets off to the fast start. And
right.
Is in first place early, and then they fall apart. But now it's like the opposite. Maybe the opposite happens. I was like the favorite on FanDuel and DraftKings to win the division before the year, and I was on that side. I agreed with them. That was my pick to win the Metro Division this year. Let's change gears over to the Atlantic Division. The Panthers, to me, are the most impressive team so far in this division. It's not even close.
I agree.
6-0-0. 12 points. They're just amazing. They're killing everybody.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're the best team in the league right now, correct?
Let's see.
I believe they are.
They are. 12 points. Yep.
Yes.
Best record right now, or most points right now.
Yeah, and their goalie, Spencer Knight, is he's doing amazing right now.
He's great.
He's so great. He made an appearance, was it last season? He made a couple appearances. I mean, he's a really great goalie, but for them to turn to him, to start, I think he has so much potential and so much talent. I think the whole team has a lot of talent, but to lean on him would be a solid move, going into this season.
I agree. I like Bobrovsky too, but he's been a playoff disappointment year in and year out. And I like Spencer Knight. Didn't they start him a couple times in the playoffs? I don't remember.
I believe they did start him a couple times in the postseason, but I want to say they turned to Bobrovsky pretty often, but for the most part, I think Spencer Knight is the difference maker for the Panthers.
Yeah, I'd say so too. And then Chris Drieger was their other goalie last year. Now he's with the Kraken.
And I want to say he's injured right now, unless that was just yes, he is injured right now. So they have Decord up from the Checkers, who have this strange 3-way affiliation going with the Panthers, the Kraken, and pulling players from the Checkers. So, but we'll talk about that in the AHL area.
We will, yeah. What else stands out? Oh, Buffalo, 4-1-1, 9 points. They beat Tampa last night. I had them in my little round robin that I did last night. And they did me good, the Sabres. They're off to an amazing start, sans all this Jack Eichel drama.
Yeah, this Eichel drama, I think it just something needs to happen just so it stops.
Right.
They're doing well. I don't know who's on the wrong side of the fence as far as, is it Eichel or is it the Sabres that are just causing a stir? But I definitely think that something needs to change with this team. Eichel needs to go somewhere, find a home, and then they can just move past it, because I feel like a lot of their success right now is just being shadowed by what is going to happen with Eichel. But at the same time, look at their success, like you said. 4-1-1 is a great start for a team that was, probably bottom of their bottom of the division last season.
Yeah, and Craig Anderson's there now. He's playing really well for them in net. To me, the disappointment in this division, I mean, you point to Tampa because it's like a Stanley Cup hangover. Also, to me, Toronto, 2-4-1 stands out as a pretty big disappointment.
I feel bad. I think Toronto's always a disappointment. I mean, I think they're good, but when they get to the postseason, they're a disappointment. Yeah. And right now, they're a disappointment. So I think Toronto's a team that really needs to pick it up moving forward.
Yeah, Toronto is a team that needs to get going. And they have a weird goalie situation. Who's their starter now? Jack Campbell?
I believe it is. Yeah, it is Jack Campbell. Yes.
Yeah, because Anderson's now in Carolina, as we just mentioned.
Right.
And then Tampa, to me, I think I'm more confident that Tampa turns it on more so than Toronto. Montreal just has a ton of injuries. I feel so bad for that team. They only have one win. And I believe that win was against the Red Wings on Saturday night or something.
What do you think of the Senators?
The Sens. They should have probably beat the Rangers on Saturday. They were 2-1, but they've lost a couple in a row. I just think that team is just rebuilding still. They're young, up and coming, but I think there are a couple years did you notice that they hired away Peter McGuire from NBC? Or NBC, yes. After they don't air hockey anymore, it's TNT and ESPN now, but Pierre, instead of going back into broadcasting, the Ottawa Senators hired him as a advisor or player development or something like that.
Now here's what I'm going to say, Madison. I'm going to backtrack for just a second.
Go ahead.
Toronto needs to get off to a better start, like I just said. But former head coach Spencer Carberry of the Hershey Bears is now one of Toronto's assistants, and he's in charge of the power play. If I'm going to make this is not my best bet, but if I'm going to say what do I feel is a difference maker for the Maple Leafs, it's their power play. I think if you look at the power play moving forward, it's going to succeed. Yeah. Just because of how Carberry is as a coach, his success in Hershey over the last 3 years, I really do think that if the Maple Leafs continue to hopefully play well, then the difference is within the power play.
I agree with that, and I think that Carbs has a chance. What if something happens with their coach? What if they collapse in the playoffs and the coach gets fired? And he gets promoted. And that's what I thought was going to happen with the Caps. I thought Laviolette could have potentially left or gotten fired and then Carbs would be the coach of the Capitals.
Right.
That's what I thought was going to happen. But no, he's with Toronto now.
Right.
And I remember how upset you were that he left.
So there was a lot circulating actually at the Bears home office, and being an AHL team, they can say a lot more.
Yeah.
And, VP of Hockey Operations, Brian Helmer, former Bear, actually made Carberry a matching offer to what Toronto offered him, and being that Carbs is from Toronto, he just said he wanted to go home and be in the NHL. So as much as he loved his time in Hershey, he said, the home is where his heart was clearly, and I hope that he can, move up to head coach. But I definitely feel that if the Capitals don't make a push or don't win the cup this year, which I honestly don't think they will, then they're going to regret not keeping Carberry around.
I agree with that. Or maybe they try to hire him away from Toronto.
That's a very good point.
They could do that.
They could.
Yeah, let's switch over to the West. The Central Division. Ooh, the Blues 5-0-0. I didn't realize that the Blues were undefeated.
Neither did I. I didn't expect that from them.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, 5-0-0. Vlad Tarasenko's playing well, even though he was in trade rumors all summer. I think he's going to stay with St. Louis for the time being. What do you say about that? I
think so, too. I think he'll stay. I hope that the Blues can continue to play well. Binnington, I guess, is playing really well, but I haven't really watched the Blues all too much, so I couldn't tell you. Looking at just the Central Division, the Stars have been off to a pretty decent start. I would really want, just for the Stars' sake, to go pretty far in the playoffs. I want the Stars to go far in the playoffs for Braden Holtby's sake.
Right.
I need to root for former Bear Braden Holtby.
Yep.
I understand, he is a cup winner, but that's the only reason I would root for the Stars. And looking all the way towards the bottom, I just feel so bad for Fleury. I think Fleury is playing the best he can with the defense that's in front of him.
Yeah.
I just feel really bad for what's going on right now, especially what happened, I think it was last week against the Penguins. I mean, the Penguins just, Fleury couldn't stop a beach ball, which was just sad.
Yeah, I felt really bad for Fleury, too.
But anyways.
I have a prediction. I think Chicago, I think their coach is going to be the first coach fired, potentially.
Really?
I do. I mean, they've
That's
one
a bold
point.
prediction.
I mean, I wouldn't think it's that bold, but I'm just going to throw a dart and say that he's the first coach fired. They were, like, booing him at home in the home opener, apparently.
Really?
In the game against the Islanders that was on ESPN a couple weeks ago. It might have been last week.
Oh,
the Islanders went and beat them. Like, they were getting booed at home. Like, the Blackhawks, to me, like, need, like, a reboot. I know they have some young players, but, like, all their guys that they won the Cups with, they're still there, like Kane and Taves. I mean, Duncan Keith moved on, though.
Right.
Corey Crawford's retired. I mean, I know Kane and Taves is kind of like Crosby and Malkin in Pittsburgh, where they're, like, lifetime Blackhawks, and their sense, like Crosby and Malkin are lifetime Penguins. And, but yeah, the Blackhawks to me are a team that needs to get a little bit younger. I'm interested to see what they do at the trade deadline. Colorado was a popular Stanley Cup pick before the year. They're 2-3, losing to the Golden Knights right now. What's that score right now? I'm gonna refresh it here on FanDuel. It is still 2-0 Vegas in the second period. Colorado, did you think that they were like a Cup favorite this year?
I honestly did think they were a Cup favorite, and when I had looked on FanDuel prior to the season start, I actually considered throwing a couple bucks on the Avalanche to win the Cup. But I don't know. I think that losing Grubauer definitely hurt them. But at the same time, the Kraken taking Grubauer doesn't seem to be the best move either. So it's just up in the air. I think they're a team that can make an eventual push. But I don't know. They were such a favorite in the postseason last year. That I guess coming into the season they were a favorite, but I think Grubauer was a huge part of their success last year.
Yeah, he was. And I like Darcy Kemper, who they got from Arizona, but he's never played in like a big game before.
Right.
That makes me nervous when teams go get goalies from bad teams and they don't perform up to expectations and whatnot. That's my biggest fear for Colorado, but I still like that team a lot. We talked about Dallas already. Minnesota was the team that surprised us all last year. They're off to a good start. They're 4-1, 8 points. I think that team could potentially finish in second in the division behind Colorado, assuming.
I would say so too. I like the Wild. I think that they are very capable. They can sustain momentum, and I would agree. I would say second finish for them. I honestly, the way I see it right now, I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple months we see the Central Division finishing just like this, with the only exception being who, the top three, I would say, leave them. They'll stay. Like, that's who's going to finish where they are.
Yeah.
With the only exception being, like, I don't know if the Jets are going to make the postseason.
Probably not. I would say Colorado Wild. I think my preseason prediction might have had Colorado Wild. The Predators was a team that I picked as a surprise playoff team. They're 2-4. I don't know. I think I'm going to come to regret that one. And the team that I might throw in there instead is Dallas. Dallas was a team that I picked to be a disappointment, but maybe I will flip the Preds and the Stars if you ask me for a do-over on the Central Division playoff picks. Let's move to the Pacific. The team that interests me and probably you the most is the Vancouver Canucks.
I agree.
That was a team that was very disappointing last year. The COVID outbreak really kind of ruined their season. And they're off to a good start. They're 3-2-1. Have a big game tonight against Dallas, I want to say. Or no, it's the Wild. They play the Wild.
Tonight they play the Wild.
They play the Wild. What are your thoughts on Vancouver?
I like Vancouver. I hope that they can make the postseason, especially because when they were in the bubble, they really made noise. I believe in the bubble they took Vegas to 7.
They took Vegas to 7.
Vegas was good that season.
Vegas was really good that year.
So I think the Canucks are a team that can make a difference. The one thing that I cannot say enough is, I will say it till I'm blue in the face, I am so happy that Coach Green and the Canucks beat the Kraken in their inaugural game at home. I couldn't be happier that the Canucks went in and won that game.
I had the Canucks
so
in
great.
my parlay that night.
That was a great choice because I believe the Canucks were the underdogs.
They were
that
dogs,
night.
yeah.
Especially being against the Kraken in that beautiful new building. I think the Canucks can definitely make noise in the postseason. this year.
Yeah, and the team that I thought was overrated in the Pacific Division before the year, they had a high point total this year, the Seattle Kraken.
Yes.
I thought that was the most overrated team coming into the year, pretty much in the entire league, because they had like a 91.5 point total on FanDuel before the year. I mean, this isn't the Vegas Golden Knights of a couple years ago, in my opinion. Yes, their goaltending duo is fabulous. They have some big names, but I think that they need some more youth in there.
So I think the difference maker, and you can definitely tell me if you think otherwise, but I think the difference maker between the Golden Knights from a couple years ago and the Kraken is that the Golden Knights seemed to choose players that played well individually within their teams, but never really stood out all too much. And the Kraken picked a lot of younger guys that either had 1 or 2 really good years, but they didn't seem to look at like those names that you don't necessarily see all too often. I mean,
Right.
You do see like on the Kraken, like former Pens, Brandon Tanev and Jared McCann, which are both excellent players. But at the same time, I think when the Knights looked at who they chose, I feel like they picked those guys that would play so well but almost go unnoticed.
Right. Next thing I want to discuss here is the Golden Knights. We talked about them earlier. They're off to a very slow start. They have a lead on Colorado right now. To me, with Vegas, I just think that they're just not getting enough scoring, like from their big names. That's to me was what's hurting the Golden Knights.
I would say I agree. And I think the one thing that the Golden Knights carry with them is obviously Robin Lehner. He's an excellent goaltender. And it was interesting to watch on their opening night against the Kraken when the Golden Knights were at home. It was interesting to watch. Lehner plays a very different goalie style than a lot of goalies. He plays very deep in his crease. He makes very subtle movements. And he is a great goalie. I just feel like the Knights, like they need to score more. Their power play, on their opening night, I think they had gone, oh my gosh, they hadn't even scored in the postseason. I think it was 32 power plays total without scoring. It was a crazy drought for the Golden Knights.
I kind of remember that too.
Because they didn't score in the postseason at all. And that's one of my favorite parts about the Golden Knights is their power play. But not right now, obviously, because they're not doing well. But I don't know about the Golden Knights. I think the Golden Knights could be a team that really shocks and does not make the postseason this year. But I guess we'll see. I think that if the Golden Knights and the Kraken if the Golden Knights and the Kraken do not make the postseason, the Canucks make the postseason.
Right. The Oilers are undefeated 10, or they have 10 points. They are 5-0-0. I did not notice that till now. That I'm sorry, I'm laughing. Edmonton is undefeated. What are your thoughts on the Oilers early on? I just think the difference for them is that their goalies are playing better, and that to me is the key to their success.
And I mean, as always, McDavid's playing extremely well. I think this is an all-team effort from the Oilers. It's been for the last few years. You look at the Oilers as a whole, and you're like, you need that depth scoring. You can't just look at like McDavid and all their big names. Like you need depth scoring. So looking at the season as a whole, I think the Oilers can make the postseason, but I think they need to continue to have that depth scoring contribute, every game.
Right. Yeah, so I know we're talking about teams off the slow starts. I mean, there's always that one team every year that is like seems like a lock to make the postseason and doesn't. And if I had to make a pick on who that is, I'm going to say it is the Boston Bruins. I didn't pick them to make the playoffs before the season because of their goaltending situation, no more Rask, and I just felt that the Bruins were a team that their core is getting older. So that would be my pick for like a most shocking team to not make the postseason. I know you threw out the Golden Knights as like a long shot at that.
Yes, I would say that as much as I have loved them in the past, as much as I still like them now, I think the decision to get rid of Fleury comes back to haunt them this season, and they don't make the postseason.
Wow, it's Vegas. Yeah, it's either Vegas or Boston. That would be like my choice. All right, the AHL. That's your favorite league. Pulling up the standings right now because so let's start with we'll just go through this very quickly. Your favorite team, the Hershey Bears, are in the Atlantic Division, as well as your favorite NHL team's affiliate, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins.
Yes.
Do you think that, I'm sure you think the Bears will probably win this division, but who do you think is their biggest challenger? I'll word it that way.
I definitely see the Bears as winning this division. Obviously, last season, I can't remember the last time I came on the podcast, but it was before the COVID season for the AHL started. And I believe on the last podcast, I did say the Bears were going to be the best team in the league, and they ended up being the best team in the league, McGregor-Kilpatrick Trophy winners. And they had the best goaltending duo last season between Phoenix Copley and Zach Vucali. And Zach Vucali posted the lowest goals against average in the entire league. And they have that same duo this season. I think where teams find difficulty is scoring against the Bears. And I think the biggest challenger right now, we haven't played them yet. But, I would say the Checkers are a huge challenger to the Bears. But I think it's obvious that the Thunderbirds are going to go toe-to-toe with the Bears. Tomorrow night, we play the Syracuse Crunch. And that's obviously my best bet. Is the Bears against the Crunch tomorrow night. Bears will win. So that's Steve's best bet for this podcast. So which will actually be posted on Wednesday. So that's my best bet. But I would say the Checkers or the Thunderbirds, more so the Thunderbirds, are the Bears' biggest challenger this season.
Okay, and in the North Division, the Utica Comets were a team that both of us had money on the other night. You talked me into the Utica Comets. Do you think they win their division, or do you think somebody else could win this division? Like maybe Buffalo Rocket or something like that?
I think Utica or Cleveland wins just because they've both gotten off to strong starts. And I think Utica has found a groove. Obviously, there was a little bit of a falling out. So the Binghamton Devils folded. Utica moved over to being the NJ Devils affiliate. And now the newly established Abbotsford Canucks are now the Vancouver Canucks affiliate.
Yep.
So there was a little bit of a shift there. But I think Utica's found a groove. I hope that it's a new start and a new life for the Devils farm system, because it doesn't seem like they've really had much success, obviously, previously with the Albany Devils. But I would say Utica or Cleveland wins this division. If I'm going to put who's my pick, I'm going to say Utica.
Utica, yeah. Devils have some good young players in their farm system. Central Division. The Chicago Wolves feel like a team that's usually good, because I remember they were in the Calder Cup a couple years ago, if I wasn't mistaken.
Yes, they were.
Who do you think that wins that Central Division? The Iowa Wild has a lot of good prospects, too.
I think right now it is so up in the air because, like you said, the Iowa Wild have a lot of good prospects. What really surprises me in this division are the bottom three teams, the Griffins, the Admirals, and the Ice Hogs, because especially the Admirals and the Ice Hogs have been really good recently, in previous seasons, and it's just surprising to see them at the bottom right now. So I think this division can go any way. If I had to pick, I would say that one of either the Admirals or the Ice Hogs, even though they're at the bottom, I would say they're going to move into playoff position come later in the season. But to win the division, I'm going to pick the Wolves.
The Wolves, interesting. The Chicago Wolves. All right, the Pacific Division. This is a big, big division.
It is.
Are you going to take the Abbotsford Canucks, or are you going to go with somebody else?
I would say the Abbotsford Canucks are I would be a bit hesitant picking them just because they're new. But again, there's nothing wrong with that. The Henderson Silver Knights had a great season last year, and I believe it was their first season. But I'm going to say you see the Henderson Silver Knights moving up into playoff position to win the division. You've never really seen the Stockton Heat or the Reign up at the top. So it would be nice to see one of them. But I would say probably the Silver Knights move into playoff position, and the Heat or the Reign win that division. Interesting.
Yeah, the Henderson Silver Knights, to me, are a team that obviously that's Vegas' affiliate, so a lot of good prospects there. All right, before we go, I want to talk about something we did earlier today. We did a round robin on FanDuel with 5 underdogs that are all playing right now. We talked about it before we started recording. FanDuel has the updates right here. So we have Calgary, Pittsburgh, San Jose, Vancouver, Anaheim is a 5-team round robin parlay. Calgary's in good position. Looks like that game's almost over. The Penguins doesn't look so good, Steve. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, Penguins. I mean, that was one of my picks for tonight as the Penguins to win, and I don't know what's with them. I mean, they haven't seemed to find any issues scoring goals recently. Jari has been amazing, so I don't know. That's actually pretty shocking. I would say I'm not as annoyed at the Penguins right now as I am with the Golden Knights because we chose not to include them because I picked them in every one of my parlays and they always lose. The other night, I laid a live game parlay. I parlayed the Stars with the Golden Knights. The Stars won in overtime and the Golden Knights lost. So I am done with picking the Golden Knights and the Kraken in parlays for the time being. But getting back to our other picks.
Yeah, so Nashville's up 1-0 on San Jose, but that's after the first period. San Jose, I suggested them because they're off to a strong start. Nashville's off to a poor start, and Nashville is favored.
Let's see. Maybe they can make a push in the second and third, hopefully. I mean, I was listening to the Penguins game on the drive over here, and it sounded like great chances from the Pens, just really great playing from Vasilevsky. So you never know.
Vasilevsky's just amazing. He's the best goalie in the league. The one that we're going to end up potentially regretting is Vegas. We talked about that. And then Vancouver or the Ducks. I think it's more likely Vancouver wins rather than Anaheim. What about you?
I agree. I love Vancouver this season. I love how they're playing right now. They're playing with like such a great swagger. They have momentum. Coach Green really has them hyped up. I think that I would say the Canucks win at home tonight. And I guess we'll see how they play. Yeah,
and then the other game we left out of the parlay is Montreal-Seattle. Seattle was just too big of a favorite. Montreal has a lot of injuries. I don't think we're going to regret leaving Montreal out, don't you?
I would say no, and if the Canadiens manage to beat Seattle at their second game at home, I would be pretty stunned.
Yeah.
That is the sole reason that I did not I did not want to throw the Canadiens in that is because it's Seattle's second game at home. You saw the crowd they had last game.
Yep.
It's very iffy, but, I don't know, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, so quickly, the Bears are minus 115 tomorrow against Syracuse. So that is the Steve's Podcast best bet. That's a good number. I'm going to bet it myself, actually.
That is my podcast best bet. The Crunch at Bears tomorrow night. Obviously, it seems like head coach Scott Allen will probably turn to the rotation of goalies. So if he continues that rotation, we'll probably see Phoenix Copley in net tomorrow for the Bears at home, which is nice because he's, I love him. I think he's a great goalie. Like I said, best goaltending duo in the AHL. But that's my podcast best bet for the night as the Bears winning tomorrow night.
Yep. All right. So that's it for tonight's show. I hope to have you back on hopefully next month. Maybe we'll get a clearer window of where teams stand and who's turned it around. Let's see if Vegas turns it around within a month from now. And who knows, maybe Buffalo's still off to the strong start. So I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, Madison. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure being on the podcast. And yes, hopefully we can get together again in about a month and see where teams stand.
Yep.